Okay, everybody. So it is right at noon. We've still got people kind of trickling in, so we'll do kind of a slow rolling start here, but we don't want to wait too long. I know everybody's busy and has things to do. I am so excited for today's topic, metabolism, especially for those of us who are over 40 or even just kind of roundabouts 40. There are so many changes that happen, and it can make it really difficult to maintain or achieve your goals in a personal way. For those of you who maybe know me, if I've got any of my patients in the list here, I've had a number of different injuries and setbacks and things over the years, and I've had to really dial in this metabolism piece to get back to baseline. So this subject is really near and dear to my heart. I've done a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, a lot of personal work over the last couple of years, and I want to make sure that everybody here gets the benefit of all of that, because this is something that we all struggle with at some point in time or another. So as we're going through, you should have a little chat box. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put something in there. There's a Q&A section. Either way is going to be fine. And especially if I cruise through something and you want to know a little bit more about it, then put your questions there and we'll get to them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get cracking. All right, so the middle age spread. Oh gosh, I hate that term, but it's so apropos. The kind of classic change that happens as we age is that we get this big increase in abdominal weight gain. Very often with that comes an increase in visceral weight gain. So visceral weight gain is the kind that we really worry about, because that's the fat that's inside the tummy, inside your abdomen, and all around the organs. And that actually really does predispose you to different disease risks, particularly liver problems, right? Obviously, the fat that we have under our skin is concerning too, but that's really just cosmetic. It can also have impacts on glucose and insulin regulation, but the visceral stuff is the one that we don't want. And I have people come in all the time and say, you know, maybe over the years I've gained and lost weight, but at least my proportions have stayed the same, or I always used to gain it in my lower half, and now all of a sudden I've lost my waist, which can be really distressing. This is one of the changes that's really typical with aging. And so the other things that come along with that, the other big one is a decline in muscle mass. This is documented in the research. I'm sure many of you have noticed the same. You just don't look quite as firm or perky, or even something as overt as you can tell you're not as strong as you used to be. Your endurance isn't there. You're not able to do maybe some of the things you used to be able to do. The other thing that really kind of contributes to this is as we age, we all get a little bit more joint pain, right? We collect some arthritis, we collect some old injuries. The more sedentary we are, the more achy we tend to become. And then unfortunately, it's kind of a vicious loop, right? As you're achy, you do less, and then you gain more weight, and then you become more achy, and then you become more sedentary. And next thing you know, you're off to the races here in a bad way. And so these are all of the things that we're working to combat. And there are some really great, very specific strategies we can use for this. And the thing that I would like to kind of bring to everybody's attention is that, weight loss is great for an awful lot of us. That's what we need. But maintaining that weight loss is even better. I'm sure we've all at some point in time experienced the yo-yo. You lose really nicely, only to gain it right back. And there are a lot of great strategies out there for weight loss if that's what you need. And so we probably won't touch on that too much today. What we're really focusing on is that metabolism piece. How do we keep ourselves functional so that when we put in that effort to lose, we can maintain those results? And then, the benefit to that also is that going forward, that really pays huge dividends in terms of your longevity, and not just your lifespan, but also your health span, right? It doesn't do us to live long if we can't also live well. And so I want for all of you to do both, to live long and to live well. So, all right. I think the biggest thing that we've all kind of experienced, or what we can all agree on, is what worked before does not work anymore. So the things that you used to do to maintain your fitness or to maintain your metabolism, the diet that you used to follow, the exercise that you used to do, it's just not giving you the same results. And so in this case, we really need to work smarter, not harder. There are some very specific changes we need to make as we age that are kind of the opposite of what maybe we've thought all of the years leading up to. And so our biggest goal at this stage is to both build and maintain muscle mass, which is, I think for a lot of guys, maybe they've already focused on that, but for a lot of women, that's new. That's not something they've ever been working on or thinking about before. Women tend to just think, as long as I'm slim, as long as I'm slender, that's all I need to worry about. But that can come back to bite you for sure if you don't have the muscle to go with it. And so simple weight loss does not serve you. Body composition is probably one of the biggest markers of overall health and wellness. And so, there are a lot of markers that the medical community uses to determine how much we should weigh. And BMI is one of them. And I'm just going to come right out and say that BMI is a giant pile of garbage, steaming hot garbage. It's only a calculation of your age, your gender, and your height. It does not take into account how much muscle mass you have, what kind of bone density you have, none of that. And so I have plenty of patients in my practice who are a very normal, very appropriate BMI, but when we send them off for body composition, they are as much as 40% body fat. And for women, especially, that increases your risk dramatically of osteoporosis. And for men too, it usually takes you longer to get there, but the risk for osteoporosis is there for you as well. And so, a body composition is critically important. Anytime you lose weight, you run the risk of losing your muscle mass. And so as you lose that muscle mass, just being smaller doesn't necessarily make you healthier. And what really kind of launched this whole journey for me was, I follow a couple of different longevity experts, and one of them had done a serial comparison of his body compositions through the years while he was following different diets and programs. And, like a lot of us in the community, he'd experimented with all of them: keto, low carb, high protein, intermittent fasting, you name it. And one of the things that he found was that while he was fasting, which lots of us do when we're losing weight, he weighed the least, was the lightest on the scale, and actually had the highest body fat percent out of all of the measurements. And we know that the higher your body fat percentage is, the worse your outcomes as we age and as we go down the road. But also, when you don't have that muscle mass driving your metabolism, it also makes you that much more likely to gain the weight back. And so you end up in this vicious circle, losing a little bit of muscle mass and then just gaining all of the weight back. And it feels like you're on this horrific merry-go-round. It's just not fun. And so as we're looking to get more fit and to get more toned, you really want to focus on that strength and endurance piece, and not necessarily on just what the scale is telling you. The scale is not always accurate feedback. And so it's a very difficult mental shift to make. And it's one that if you can make it happen, it's going to change everything for you. I highly, highly recommend it. So maintaining your metabolic health is all about that body composition. And so when you have this column on the left here, how much muscle mass do you have? It's going to raise your resting metabolic rate, which means you're going to burn more calories, use more energy, just sitting around, just existing in your world. It also improves glucose and insulin regulation. So if you are diabetic, pre-diabetic, if you have insulin resistance, or if you are someone who's hypoglycemic like me, it's a running joke in our house, don't feed mom peanut butter cups because she gets a little nutty. Once you build some good muscle mass, a lot of that settles down. You're going to be improving your bone density. You're going to be improving your longevity. And, honestly, you're going to get the quality of life piece, which is over here on this other side, these other benefits of muscle mass. And so, my kids are little. For me, having enough muscle means I can wrestle with my boys and not get my limbs broken in half. But, let's look forward in your lives, maybe another 15, 20, however many years. Having that strength means you're able to travel. It means you can live independently. It means you can hold your grandbabies. It means you can carry your own groceries. It means you can get up off the floor or get out of a chair. This loss of muscle mass is something that can really sneak up on you. I had a patient who told me, she thought she was pretty fit. She was doing okay. And then all of a sudden, one day she was playing on the ground with her grandbabies and realized she was having a hard time standing up. And she thought, I don't want to be that grandparent. And, you never saw somebody get in the gym so quick. So these are things that as we age, it gets more difficult to build. And so you want to start ASAP. The younger you are, the easier it's going to be for you. That having been said, there is never an age at which it is too late. I was actually just reading some research yesterday. Even into our 70s and 80s, we can build muscle. And there's some really fantastic stories of that all over the internet. If you need some inspiration, feel free to go searching. But the real takeaway message is the time to start is now. It's never going to get easier. You just got to do it now. And so here's some low-hanging fruit when it comes to metabolic success. And these are things that you should be working on with your physician. You got to make sure your thyroid is optimized and not just within the normal range, but really optimal. Same thing with your hormones. If you're doing the perimenopausal, menopausal transition, this can be a little bit of a wild ride. You want a doc who's really experienced with their hormones to help guide you through that. And men, this is absolutely true too. I find for a lot of my patients, they tend to think, well, if I don't have any erectile dysfunction, then my testosterone must be just fine. And the truth is that ED is the very last symptom of low testosterone. Leading up to, you get things like brain fog, fatigue, low motivation, loss of muscle mass, abdominal weight gain. So make sure you're having these things checked. The other thing that's really critically important are all of your nutrients. And so B12 and folate, every cell in your body uses these things in very high amounts to do everything. When we were students way back when in biochem class, we used to joke, if you don't know the answer, put B12 and folate. Your cells cannot metabolize, they cannot burn fuel, they cannot create energy if you don't have enough of those things. You got to have enough vitamin D to keep your immune system nice and balanced, to keep overall inflammation low. Inflammation is something that will absolutely ruin your metabolism. You got to have enough zinc for proper thyroid function. You got to have enough magnesium to keep your blood sugars nice and steady. And so these are all things to be thinking about. If you're not sure where your levels are, ask your doctor. They're all real easy to check and also real easy to supplement if that's what you need. Some more low-hanging fruit, my favorite one, sleep. This is really key. There is no workaround for sleep. You got to be getting enough, and it's got to be good quality. All of our repair, rebuilding, remodeling, regenerating, all of our weight loss, all of our muscle building, all of our detoxification, all of that happens at night when we're asleep. The body needs us to be shut down so it can go to work housekeeping. And so if you're only getting 4, 5, 6 hours a night, it's not going to be enough. If you're getting 7, 8, 9 hours a night, but you're tossing and turning and you're waking up 4 or 5 times to go to the bathroom or whatever the case is, it's probably also not enough if you're not slipping into those deep sleep phases. So this is a big thing to be working on. Make sure your mattress isn't 20 years old. You get the good pillow. All of these things can help. Then after we get past the low-hanging fruit, we have some very unsexy truths. And these are all things that none of us like to hear. These are all things that we all wish weren't true, and yet here they are. And so water is critically important, especially here in the desert. A minimum of half your body weight in ounces. If you're a big guy, a big person, you are going to need more water than someone who is really kind of more petite and tiny. And especially if you're doing sweaty exercise or if you spend a lot of time outside where it's very dry. I mean, here in Arizona, especially this time of year, we lose water just breathing. So this is critical. Also, coffee, alcohol, soda, caffeinated tea, these things do not count. They are diuretics. You will lose more fluid than you are taking in. And so you really do need to be drinking just plain water. And if you're someone who is trying to lose weight and lean out, I can tell you that the more you can get used to drinking just plain water, the easier it's going to be for your taste buds to break up with sugar. And so just keep working on it. Every little change you can make in that direction is going to be a good one. Then as an aside, I would say be very careful with carbonated water. This is a new thing kind of in the last few years as we've got these flavored fizzy things that started off with LaCroix, and now we've got Waterloo and bubbly and all these other things. Carbonated things pull calcium from the bones. This is something I was just reminded of on my kiddos' field trip. Caves are made by carbonic acid leaching through the ground and dissolving the calcium in, the rock layer. Carbonic acid is exactly what makes carbonation, and it does impact your calcium balance, and it will pull that calcium out of your bones. So if bone density is a thing for you, or even if you just want to be proactive in maintaining your bones, you got to be careful how much carbonation you're getting in. Alcohol. This is probably the unsexiest of all the unsexy truths. This is going to hold you back. Absolutely, without reservation, every time. And so the question here is, if you're someone who enjoys a cocktail from time to time, how much progress do you want to make? There really is no alcohol that gets a free pass. Your seltzers, your vodka soda, the alcohol itself is still going to spike your glucose and insulin and create a lot of inflammation and hold you back in a weight loss way. And so if you're really wanting to get after it, you should cut it out altogether. If you're like, I really love my cocktail, I just want to make slow, steady progress, then just scale it back. There was a thought for a time that a small amount, like a glass of red wine or what have you, would be cardioprotective. They've since gone back and taken a second look at all that research and found that the people who were doing the glass of red wine were also doing other healthy things. And once they teased apart that research, there really is no amount of alcohol that is protective of the heart. So it's time for us all to sadly disabuse ourselves of that notion. If you really want to lean out, you got to stop the alcohol. And so the last one is the produce piece. So we're all adults here. We can all do hard things. You got to eat your fruits and vegetables. That fiber is going to help fill you up. It's going to help scrub the colon. It's going to reduce your risk of colon cancer. It's also going to overall keep your total calorie intake down. My word of caution to you here is you can absolutely eat too much fruit. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And so fruit is delicious. It's tasty. It's wonderful. I have had a couple of people make themselves diabetic just because they were eating huge quantities of fruit. So go easy on that. All the vegetables that you like. And so the other thing too is if you're focusing on processed foods, things that come in bags and boxes, bars, shakes, if you're vegan, if you're doing a lot of the processed proteins, that's also going to hold you back. Unfortunately, there's just no workaround for that. Those foods are a bit more inflammatory. The industry is looking to sell a product. They're putting lots of extra additives and things in there, things to extend the shelf life, things to improve the taste that maybe aren't the greatest for us. One thing that I see quite a bit of is people tend to overdose on the artificial sweeteners when they're using a lot of those products. So you're going to want to keep those to an absolute minimum. All right. This is probably the single biggest change and the one that I spend the most time on, and that is protein. Once we cross roundabouts 40, for some people maybe a little sooner, for some people maybe a little later, but 40 is kind of the benchmark. All of a sudden, we don't absorb our protein as well. What we do absorb, we don't use as efficiently. And so what this means is we end up operating, even though we're eating the same amount, at a protein deficit. And really the only workaround for this is just to eat more. And this is really where all of those age-related metabolic changes come from. If you're operating at a protein deficit, your cells can't do the things that they need to do. And so here are some of the most common protein insufficiency symptoms. Now, we're a developed country. We tend to not have true overt deficiencies, but I mean, tell me if any of this is familiar, right? Mood changes, brain fog, blood sugar swings, decreased muscle mass, aches and pains, hair loss, weak nails, dry, thinning, texture changes in the skin, fatigue, sugar cravings. I mean, these are things that I see in probably every patient that comes in my door. And this is probably checking a lot of boxes for those of you who are listening in. If you don't get enough protein, you're going to have a very high likelihood of getting some fatty liver or retaining water and just feeling puffy and swollen. If it gets bad enough, you can get stress fractures. And very often for people who feel like their appetite is just through the roof, off the charts high, like they're always hungry, it's probably because you're not getting in enough protein. And the most common thing I hear is, well, I've been really focusing on protein. I'm getting some in at every meal. I think I'm doing just fine in that department. Very often, even though you're focusing, it's still not enough. And so what I really recommend for people is that you start tracking. Plug it into a tracker. And I do this for a living, and there have been times where I thought, yeah, I'm on track. How come I'm not seeing the progress I'm expecting? I go to plug it into the tracker and realize I'm nowhere near my goal. I've slipped off track. And so how much do we need? This is the big question. And that is really very goal dependent. That's a very individual number. And if you need guidance on this, absolutely talk to your doctor about it. And so if you go searching on the internet, you're going to find this 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That is only to maintain. And that number was found working with sedentary adults. And it's just enough to prevent overt deficiency. This falls right into that category with, say, the RDA for vitamin C. It's the vitamin C recommended daily allowance is just enough to prevent scurvy, just enough to keep the teeth from falling out of your head. It's nowhere near an optimal number. And that's the same in this case. As we age, we need more. And if you're someone who's coming from behind, if you have low muscle mass and you need to rebuild, you're definitely going to need even more. And so really the recommendation is anywhere from 1.6 to 2.4 grams per kilogram body weight. That's as much as triple what is typically recommended. And so for most women, kind of in our typical weight range, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 100 to 160 grams a day. 100 grams a day would be for kind of your average size, maybe lower activity level woman. The 160 grams is going to be if maybe you carry a little bit more body weight or you're doing a lot of really intense physical activity, or if you're looking to really build muscle mass quickly. For men, that range shifts up. You're looking at more like 140 to 210. These are some just very typical ranges. If you want to calculate for your own self, it's going to be your weight in pounds times 0.45, that'll convert you to kilograms. And then you would times it by either 1.6 or 2 or 2.4. You can get some really good guidance from your physician on this. And so athletes, if you've already got more lean body mass, you're going to need more. And so I'll actually tailor this for myself personally, depending on the season. Some seasons of the year, I do much more intense physical activity than others. And so I'll scale my protein up those months. For both recovery, performance, all of those things. So how do you know if you're hitting that number? And okay, so if you have unlimited resources or not a lot of time on your hands, you can always get a pre-structured meal plan from a nutritionist. There are a lot of meal prep services that will send you meals that have a preset amount of protein in them. And so that's fine. Or you can do the macro tracking, which is such a pain in the rear. I have such a love-hate relationship with macro tracking, but it's insanely effective, right? And so I'd say just spot check it, track for a couple of days, see if you're on target or not. If you're not, play with it. What kind of tweaks do you need to make? What goes well for you? What goes poorly? If you are a plant-based person, you got to really make sure you're getting enough leucine specifically. And that might be something you want to consider supplementing. But if you're getting a variety of protein sources, you're probably okay. It's really difficult to hit those kinds of numbers on just a plant-based diet. So people are going to need to be extra diligent about it. And so just be really cautious of those ultra processed meat alternatives because sometimes they can hold you back. So then the other really big key is exercise. And we all know we need to exercise, but how we exercise as we age really changes. This piece is absolutely mandatory. This is what we're eating all that protein for. There is no pill or workaround. There's no substitute for plain exercise. We just got to do it. So this falls under the same category as vegetables. We're adults. We can do hard things. You might surprise yourself and find that you really like it. Wherever you're at, start there, build from there. If you can't walk, start with walking. Get a recumbent bike. If you need to do chair exercises or pool exercises, start there and work your way up. I can tell you that those lower impact things are not going to net you the same results, but sometimes that's where you need to begin and just give yourself grace and time to climb that mountain. You just got to keep pushing yourself along the way. Find something that you like, something you enjoy, something that makes you happy. If that's a dance class or hiking, or I've recommended combat type classes of martial arts, boxing to people. I personally like to lift weights, whatever works for you. But make it a scheduled part of your day. If you just say, oh, I'll get to it when I finish X, Y, or Z, it's not going to happen. There's always something to do. The kids need something. Work is crazy. That thing's got to be taken care of at the house. I find I'm most successful if I go early in the morning because that's my time. The day tends to get derailed from there. If I try to go in the evening, it's a hit or miss whether it's going to happen or not. Sometimes it helps to pay to be there, to have a trainer or a class that you're going to lose that money for. That really forces you to show up, right? When you're doing this exercise, you really need to engage the part of your muscle fiber that is really doing the work. And so that means a true effort. Walking, gardening, light, easy yoga, it's not going to get you there. It's really not. I wish it would, but you got to step up that intensity. And so what worked before does not work now. As we age, our stress levels are higher, our hormones have shifted, we don't recover as well. Everything needs to adapt. And so don't expect to be able to hop on the treadmill, do the same things you did at 28 and see the same results. Now we need to be doing much more resistance training. And so weights, I think, is the easiest way to do it. You can do it with body weight movements, and sometimes that's a really great place to start. But adding in this resistance training is pretty mandatory. You can do it with bands as well. If you are hitting 15 to 20 reps, it's too easy. All of our books, all of our experts on training and metabolism, especially over 40, they all say the same thing, and that is lift heavy stuff. You really got to lift heavy, no more than 12 reps. If you're getting more than that, it's time to increase that weight. And so once you start doing this, you're going to get that caloric afterburn, which means even hours after your workout is finished, you're still going to be burning extra calories. It's going to improve your balance and stability, which may not be a big deal now, but that really sure does matter once you start getting to be, into your senior golden years. It's going to improve your bone density and it reduces your risk of injury. This is really pretty key. The more muscle strength and stability you have around your joints, the less likely you are going to be to injure them. Now, that's with the caveat, no hero antics in the gym. You don't want to injure yourself while you're trying to exercise, right? So only cardio, not going to cut it. So if you are used to spending all your time on the treadmill or the elliptical, you're just going to be spinning your wheels, so to speak. We do need some cardio. We do need to have that cardiorespiratory fitness, but it's a lot less than what you think. And so the focus, you're going to get much better results if you focus on zone 2 cardio, which is a fancy way of saying moderate long effort. So if you're on the treadmill or the elliptical or walking in your neighborhood or bike riding, you should be able to hold a conversation, but not comfortably. And this is something that you would do for 45 minutes, an hour. If you can't handle that long, that's fine. Start with lower and just work your way up. And then maybe 1 or 2 days of intense effort. This is going to be your boot camp, your CrossFit, your HIIT, or if you're doing a certain sport. For most people, it does not take more than that. And I find for my patients who are doing 5 days a week of boot camp or HIIT or CrossFit or whatever, it's too much. And it actually sort of keeps a lot of extra weight on them. It's too much of that cortisol response. And so especially if you're looking to lean out, dial back on that stuff. And this is especially true for those of us who have intense, busy schedules, high stress, kids, ailing parents, you name it. So your body's just going to see that intense exercise as even more stress. So scale it back. Won't I bulk up? I hear this a lot. And the absolute answer is no, you won't. You're just going to look lean and toned. This picture here of this bodybuilder, this woman worked very, very hard and did some extraordinary things to make that happen. Very often that requires enormous doses of testosterone or steroids and a ton of different supplements. Your average person is not going to do this. So you really don't have to worry about bulking up. You can keep that idea right out of your brain. And so setting goals. Muscle is very dense and heavy. Once you start doing this, you're going to have to change your target weight. The scale is not going to be an accurate reflection of progress that you've made. And so use other measurements, actual measurements, right? Get out your tape measure, or you can do photos. You can do body composition testing. Both of these things here are 1 pound. And so if you lose a pound of fat and gain a pound of muscle, the scale is going to show 0 progress and you are going to look like a totally different person. So just keep those things in mind. And I've got a series of photos here just to drive this point home, because especially for us women, we tend to struggle with the scale. This is the same woman weighing the exact same amount in both photos. And I can guarantee you this woman feels better, looks better, wears a different dress size, and is going to live a lot longer. Same for this one. I actually have this one on my desktop so I can show people in the moment. And so if you're one of my patients, maybe you've seen it. Now, granted, she's young and fabulous and whatever, but she started here at this weight, decided she wanted to lean out. So she dropped 20 pounds, landed in the middle here. That's all fine. From there, she actually started lifting and eating more protein, and she looks so much more lean and so much more toned. And yet, look at her weight. She's right back to where she started. So please don't get wrapped up in the scale. You can measure your progress by so many other metrics. Same thing for this woman. Same exact weight. This is what we call body recomposition. This is one of the hardest things to do. Losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time. And it's absolutely doable. And she is living proof. I bet she busted her buns for this result. Same goes true for men. All right. So this guy, same weight, both photos. The more muscle you build, the leaner, the more toned, the healthier you're going to get. And it works in reverse. You can maintain the exact same weight and be less healthy, right? So this is something that often happens after injury, surgery, life events that get in the way. So we really need to keep an eye on more than just that scale. All right, so what kind of body composition should we have? I know we're approaching 12:30, so I'm going to sail through this. Common for women is anywhere 35 to 40. Really, you want to be shooting anywhere, depending on your age, kind of 20 to 30-ish, maybe a little above, right? You definitely don't want to be below 20% body fat for long, especially below 15. That's where you're risking your bones and your hormonal health. For men are geared to be just a little bit leaner than women. That's fine. Anywhere for men, kind of 10 to 22 is where you want to land in terms of a body fat percent. And you can get that number through a body composition test, which I highly recommend if you've not done it yet. And so this just graphs it out. I think these slides are going to be available afterwards, so you can kind of study it. But you can see we do tend to gain a little bit of body fat as we age. And so where you fall on this scale is a matter of, for you personally, how hard do you want to work and what kind of aesthetic are you shooting for? So how much change in effort is reasonable for you? If you want to go no alcohol, sleep 9-10 hours a night, spend an hour in the gym every day, meal prep everything in advance, track all your macros, yeah, you can probably get down to a real lean BMI. For most of us, that's not feasible. We don't have that kind of time. So you have to sort of reconcile how much effort you're going to put in and what kind of results you want to make. But it's 100% worth it, and it does take time. And even a small change each year, it might take you a while to get there, but you'll get there. No one reaches their senior years and says, man, I have too much muscle. Like that just doesn't happen. So build it now. If pain is holding you back, this is a big one. I can't go to the gym. I can't lift because of my knees or my hips or my back or my whatever. Collagen is a great option, anywhere from 10 to 12 grams or more every day. It's really fantastic for arthritis. I take it daily myself. I have what I would call a significant orthopedic history, but it's also really great for joint stability. And as a side bonus, you get some GI repair and extra hair and skin health. So that's nice. MSM, glucosamine, chondroitin, also really excellent for arthritis, but it does take time to kick in. It takes a good 6 or 8 weeks to see a result from that one. Definitely do not take that if you have a shellfish allergy. And then PRP is really fantastic, especially for injuries, both old and new, and for arthritis. If you've got partial tearing, fraying, weak, unstable joints, I love PRP for this. And then just a reminder, my physical therapist puts this on their shirts and I love it. Motion is the best lotion. Your joints need to move in order to stay healthy. And so sometimes, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable, you're gonna be better if you actually do the exercise. So sometimes you just got to get over that initial hump. And so last little note, we don't have enough time to get into this because it's such a big topic, but for the ladies that are with us today, if you're already doing all of this and you're still so frustrated, I would really consider the possibility of breast implant illness. There are a lot of resources and stories online, but for a lot of women, breast implants are deeply inflammatory and they can cause a lot of weight gain, and that is incredibly stubborn until you have them removed. And so, I mean, this woman's story in particular, she was a bodybuilder. She knows how to lean out. She put implants in, gained a bunch of weight, couldn't get it off despite her best efforts. And then finally, once she had them removed, leaned back out again. So that's something you can talk to your doc about that or research if you think that might be a factor for you. All right. Then that is it. So thank you guys. We've got some questions, comments here. Let's head to the chat box and see what we've got. Oh, no, looks like we're all set. So I know we ran just a few minutes past. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions later, if you think of something, you know where to find us. Feel free to reach out, and hope you have a great day.